The ship drifted silently through the endless void, a massive hulking mass of scorched metal and twisted alloys, far from the bustling trade routes or established colonies in a forgotten corner of the galaxy. Captain Elena Vargas stared out of the viewports of the Indomitable Asterisk. As they approached the anomaly, her fingers gripped the armrest of her command chair, her heart pounding as the ship's sensors confirmed what they were seeing was real. The wreck was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. It had the shape of a ship, yet the markings were organic, as though it had been grown, not built. Its surface shimmered faintly under the distant light of the nearby star, as though it had once been alive, or at least part of something much bigger. The entire crew had been on edge since they'd discovered the wreck's coordinates a week ago. A rogue transmission had pinged from a distant system, a distress signal buried beneath layers of radiation and interference. It had taken all their skill just to locate the source. Now they were here, but with no idea what they'd find. Vargas's voice broke through the tense silence of the bridge, giving the order to lower the ship into the planet's orbit. She had seen wrecks before, destroyed vessels abandoned for centuries. But this was different. This felt wrong. Her instincts screamed that this was not just a random ship lost in time. There was purpose to its ruin. The Indomitable Asterisk descended toward the planet's surface. Below the wrecked ship loomed ahead a dark silhouette against the endless expanse of stars. "Ready the boarding party," Vargas commanded her officers as they gathered around the holographic table, showing the ship's layout. A rough scan had revealed areas of deep structural damage, yet intact sections that might harbor something useful. They were all professionals, but even seasoned explorers could feel the gravity of the moment. Something about this place was alive with danger. The planet itself was a barren wasteland, a cracked and desolate rock, nothing to sustain life for millions of years. Yet it had been here all along, waiting to be discovered. The wreck appeared to have crashed into the planet's surface long ago, its impact creating a massive crater. The impact point was near the edge of a thick mountain range, windswept and desolate. Vargas knew it would be treacherous to land the ship here, but there was no choice. They were running out of time. The ground team suited up as they prepared to leave the Indomitable Asterisk. Vargas led them out onto the shuttle pad, the air heavy with anticipation, each of them feeling the weight of the unknown. As the shuttle doors closed behind them, the ship lifted from the Indomitable's asterisk belly and raced toward the surface. The planet's surface was barren, cold, lifeless, a frozen wasteland where even the winds howled in emptiness. The shuttle touched down near the wreckage with a soft jolt. The team disembarked carefully, stepping onto the planet's cracked surface, their boots crunching against the dry soil. The wreck was far larger up close than any of them had anticipated. Massive, jagged edges of metal extended from the ground, like the claws of some ancient beast, its hull covered in strange markings glowing faintly, a pulse of energy, faint but undeniable, radiating from deep within the ship's core. The team gathered around Vargas as she moved closer to the wreck, their hearts racing, their breath steady but shallow. They could all feel it. This was no ordinary discovery. It was something far more significant than anyone could have anticipated. Vargas signaled to the engineers to begin their work, preparing the equipment to breach the wreck's outer shell. The team set to work slicing through the alien metal, the sound of their cutting tools filling the air as they dug deeper into the vessel. With each passing minute, the pulse of energy from within grew stronger and stronger until finally, with a loud crack, the outer hull was breached, and the true mystery of the wreck began to reveal itself. As the last piece of alien metal fell away, the team stepped into the wreckage of the ship, their flashlights cutting through the suffocating darkness inside the hull. The air was thick with the smell of something ancient, decayed, and unnatural. It was as if the very atmosphere had been preserved over millennia, untouched by the ravages of time or the harsh conditions outside. The dim, greenish glow from strange alien lights pulsed weakly along the walls, illuminating the path ahead and casting long shadows that danced across the twisted interior. Captain Vargas felt a strange shiver crawl up her spine as she led her team deeper into the bowels of the wreck. Despite the eerie silence, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone, that something was watching them from the darkness, waiting. Her hand hovered near the sidearm strapped to her belt, though she knew it was a useless precaution against whatever lay ahead. This was no ordinary wreck. It was a message, a warning. The team's scanners picked up strange readings as they moved further into the ship. The technology was unlike anything humans had ever encountered, alien in its structure and purpose. Some of the devices still hummed with residual power, faint but unmistakable. Others were dark, as though they had been deliberately shut down, abandoned, and left to rot. Yet, amidst the decay, something stood out. At the center of the vessel, nestled in a large chamber, was an artifact, an object that defied explanation. It wasn't just the size that was staggering. Though it was massive, its shape both geometric and organic at once, shifting like something alive. It glowed with an internal energy, pulsing in rhythm with the faint hum of the ship. And it was this artifact, this strange alien device, that seemed to call to them. Vargas felt an odd pull toward it, as if it recognized her presence and responded in kind. The team's engineers scrambled to examine the object, but no one could make sense of it. It had no obvious interface, no manual, no way to interact with it. But it was emitting a signal, a strong, steady pulse that seemed to be sending something out into the dark reaches of space. A transmission. "We need to shut it down," one of the engineers said, his voice strained, as if he too sensed the danger emanating from the device. Vargas nodded but didn't give the order. The ship had been dead for eons, and yet this object was still functioning. There was something important here, something they had yet to understand. But before she could respond, the device emitted a sudden, sharp pulse of light, brighter than any of them had expected. The sound was deafening, a hum that seemed to vibrate through their bones, reverberating through the walls of the wrecked ship. For a moment, it was as if the entire vessel was alive, thrumming with energy. Then, just as suddenly, everything stopped. The light faded, and the ship fell silent once more. Vargas blinked, disoriented, her breath shallow as the air returned to normal. But the eerie calm was short-lived. The communications officer, Lieutenant Klein, turned toward her with a look of pure shock. "Captain, you need to see this," he said, his voice tight with urgency. Vargas rushed to the communication console. The screen was flickering, but a series of strange symbols were displayed on the monitor, alien characters flashing in rapid succession. Then, in a voice that sounded almost too distant to be real, a transmission began to play. It wasn't a language they recognized, but the tone was unmistakable. It was a warning, a message meant for someone far beyond the stars. The last part of the message cut through the static with clarity, sending a chill down her spine. "You should not have found this." A deep silence fell over the team as they processed the words. Vargas felt her heart rate spike. They had awakened something far beyond their understanding. The message wasn't just a warning to them. It was a call, a summons. Before she could react, the ship's sensors went wild. Energy spikes, strange fluctuations. Something was coming. Something was already here. The communications officer turned pale, staring at his screen in horror. "Captain," he whispered, "there's a ship in orbit, and it's not ours." The crew rushed to the windows, staring into the blackness of space. A shadow, vast and cold, loomed beyond the horizon of the planet. And though it was still far away, the unmistakable dread that it was coming for them was already settling over them. Earth had just made its first contact with the unknown, and it had never been more dangerous. The silence in the wrecked ship was deafening after the transmission ended. For a long moment, Captain Vargas could do nothing but stare at the flickering communication panel, her mind racing to make sense of what they had just heard. "You should not have found this." The message seemed so simple, yet its implications were vast. Something, had clearly been watching them, monitoring their every move. But who? And why? The team exchanged uneasy glances, their collective anxiety palpable. They'd come here to discover something of scientific value, something that would propel humanity forward. But instead, they'd unearthed a warning, one that was likely too late to heed. "Lieutenant Klein, run a full scan of the area," Vargas ordered, her voice strained but firm. "I want to know everything that's out there." Klein nodded, his fingers flying over his console, his eyes darting between the screens. Moments later, his face drained of color as he turned toward Vargas. "Captain," he said, his voice cracking. "There's something out there. A ship, and it's moving toward us." Vargas' stomach twisted. Her first instinct was to question the accuracy of the scan. Maybe it was a glitch, some anomaly caused by the wreck's strange technology. But deep down, she knew it wasn't. She could feel it in her bones. Whatever was coming was real. "How long until it's in range?" Vargas demanded. 3 hours at most," Klein replied. "But the scan doesn't match any known species or ships in the Federation database. It's something else." A cold silence swept through the room. No one spoke. They all understood the unspoken truth. The artifact they had uncovered, the device that had sent out that chilling transmission, had drawn the attention of something far older, far more dangerous than they could have ever imagined. Vargas turned toward the rest of her team. "We need to secure the wreck. The alien ship is on its way, and I don't know if we'll be able to stop it with what we have. Prepare the shuttle for immediate evac, but we'll need to take this artifact back to Earth. We don't know what it's capable of, but we need to find out. No one else is going to." The team quickly set to work, gathering equipment and securing the ship. Vargas' mind raced. She had trained for moments like this. Contact with alien species was inevitable, but this was different. The galaxy was teeming with life, but none of it had ever felt like this. There was no sense of diplomacy, no desire to communicate, only an overwhelming feeling of dread. Whatever was coming wasn't here to talk. As they worked, Vargas couldn't shake the image of the ship looming in the distance, growing ever closer. She needed answers, and she needed them fast. The crew worked in tense silence, knowing they had precious little time. But as the hours ticked by, something strange happened. The very air inside the wreck seemed to shift. The pulse of energy from the artifact grew stronger, more insistent, as if it were reaching out into the void. Vargas noticed it first. The hum, faint at first, became almost deafening, reverberating through the metal walls of the ship. And then the lights flickered, a series of sharp pulses, as if the ship itself was coming back to life. "Captain," Klein said, his voice low and urgent. "The scan, it's changing." "What do you mean?" Vargas asked, a sinking feeling settling in her stomach. "The ship," Klein's eyes were wide. "It's not just moving. It's accelerating. It's like it's asterisk responding asterisk to the artifact. Like it knows we're here." Vargas froze. The alien ship wasn't just coming for them. It was drawn to them, to the device, to the signal they had unknowingly activated. The walls seemed to close in as the reality of the situation hit her. Earth was no longer just dealing with a mysterious alien artifact. They were being hunted. Suddenly, an alarm blared throughout the wreck. A proximity alert. Vargas snapped her head toward the monitor. The alien ship had entered the atmosphere. It was descending toward the planet. They didn't have 3 hours. They had minutes. "Prepare for evac," she ordered, her voice low but steady. "Now." The crew scrambled to load the artifact into the shuttle, but as they made their way toward the exit, something even more chilling happened. The ship's entrance was sealed shut. They were trapped. Vargas slammed her fist against the bulkhead, her mind spinning. There was no time to think, no time to plan. She rushed back to the communications panel and attempted to send a distress signal. But the moment she activated the transmitter, a cold, metallic voice crackled through the speakers. "Asterisk, you will not leave." Asterisk. The voice was unmistakable. It was the same as the one in the transmission, and it was coming from somewhere deep within the wreckage. The ship had come alive. and now it was trying to stop them from escaping. The ship's walls trembled as if the very bones of the wreck were alive, pulsing with an unnatural energy that hummed through the air. The eerie metallic voice that had spoken through the communications panel was now replaced by a low, almost imperceptible vibration that seemed to resonate from the heart of the vessel itself. It was as though the ship, this ancient, foreign thing, was responding to their presence, aware of their every move. Vargas could feel the tension in her chest tighten, as if she were caught in the grip of something far older and far more dangerous than anything humanity had ever encountered. "We need to get out of here," Lieutenant Klein said, his voice strained with panic as he glanced at the closed bulkhead doors. "Now." Vargas nodded grimly, her mind working in overdrive. The shuttle, their only means of escape, was still waiting for them on the surface, but the path to the exit was obstructed. The alien ship was closing in on them, its intent unmistakable. She could feel it in her gut. They were no longer simply explorers, they were prey. "Can we override the security systems?" Vargas asked, trying to focus as the weight of the situation pressed down on her. She turned to the engineer, Lieutenant Drayton, who had been working on the damaged systems before the ship sealed itself shut. Drayton's face was pale, his hands shaking as he examined the control panel. I don't know," he admitted. "The systems are integrated into the ship's core. It's like the ship is *alive*, Captain. I've never seen anything like it." The hum of the ship grew louder, a rhythmic pulse that felt like it was driving directly into their skulls. The doors refused to budge, as if the ship itself was holding them in place, trapping them inside. A sudden, violent jolt rocked the vessel, sending everyone sprawling to the floor. "What the hell was that?" Klein shouted, grabbing onto the nearest bulkhead to steady himself. Vargas' eyes widened as the display on the ship's sensors lit up with alarming data. The alien ship wasn't just hovering anymore. It was firing *. A massive energy beam lanced down from the sky, carving through the atmosphere like a sword through butter. The ground beneath them shook as the energy pulse hit the surface of the planet, creating an explosion so powerful it rattled the wreckage. It was the first strike in what would undoubtedly be many more to come. "We're being targeted," Vargas said, her voice cold with realization. "We need to move. Now. She rushed toward the shuttle's docking bay, her crew following in a scramble. The doors to the bay were still open, but the path was now littered with debris from the ship's violent tremors. As they navigated the corridor, the ship groaned and creaked, the walls buckling under the force of another strike from above. The ship's internal alarms blared, flashing red as the systems began to overload. Klein turned to her, panic creeping into his voice. "Captain, we're not going to make it. We're too far from the shuttle. We're trapped in here with no way out." Vargas ignored the fear in his tone, pushing forward. The alien ship's attack was relentless, the second blast hitting the ground so hard it sent a shockwave through the air, knocking several of the crew members off balance. The ship's corridor felt like it was closing in on them, the metal walls shifting as if they were constricting around their every step. "Hold it together," Vargas snapped. "We make it to the shuttle, or we don't make it at all." They reached the bay just in time for the shuttle doors to hiss open. The shuttle, designed for planetary evacuations, was their last chance. The crew scrambled inside, and Vargas immediately jumped into the cockpit, her hands flying over the controls. They had no time to lose. The alien ship was getting closer, each pulse of energy growing more destructive, more focused. She could see the shadow of the ship looming overhead now, massive and terrifying, a behemoth that seemed to block out the sky. "Captain, we can't take off with that thing hovering over us," Klein yelled, his eyes wide as he stared at the shuttle's sensors. "It'll shoot us down before we even leave the atmosphere." Vargas gritted her teeth. "We don't have a choice. We have to move. Now. She powered up the shuttle's engines, overriding the safety protocols as the ship's thrusters roared to life. The shuttle shot into the air, the ship's tailing exhaust billowing out in a blaze of fiery propulsion. As they ascended into the atmosphere, a third, more focused energy beam from the alien ship streaked across the sky, narrowly missing the shuttle by mere meters. The force of the near miss sent the shuttle spiraling for a moment, but Vargas gripped the controls tight, pulling them back on course. "Hold on," she shouted. "I'm not losing anyone here." They rocketed higher, the alien ship following them, its weapons lighting up the sky. Shuttle was small and fast, but the alien ship was enormous, its firepower overwhelming. Every shot that missed seemed to shake the very air around them. Vargas could feel the pressure building. This was no longer just a discovery. It was war, and it had only just begun. The shuttle sliced through the atmosphere, the alien ship's massive silhouette growing ever larger behind them. Captain Vargas' fingers tightened on the controls, her mind racing as the chaos outside threatened to swallow them whole. The shuttle's hull rattled under the force of another energy beam that missed them by inches, sending a shockwave through the cabin. The sheer weight of the alien ship's firepower was overwhelming, and despite the shuttle's speed, Vargas knew they couldn't outrun it forever. "How long until we're clear of the atmosphere?" Vargas asked, her voice steady but tense, focused on the task at hand. "Less than 5 minutes, Captain," Klein replied from the communications panel, his eyes fixed on the shuttle's trajectory. "But we need to take that thing down before we hit the edge of the stratosphere. We can't fight it once we're in orbit." Vargas nodded, her mind whirring through possibilities. The alien ship was powerful, far more advanced than anything Earth had, but they had something it didn't: human ingenuity. Earth's technology had already been augmented with the wrecked ship's alien systems, but there was still so much they hadn't unlocked. They had weapons now, but nothing that could match the sheer destructive force of the Carrack's firepower. They needed an edge. "We've got one shot at this," Vargas muttered under her breath. "Prepare for a counterattack. If we're going down, it's on our terms." The crew scrambled to ready their weapons, the hum of the shuttle's internal systems mixing with the growing roar of the approaching alien ship. They were nearly clear of the atmosphere, but the Carrack ship was relentless, closing in with terrifying speed. It fired again, a massive blast that collided with the shuttle's rear, jolting them violently. The shields flickered, but held. "We can't take another hit like that," Drayton said, his voice strained as he worked to stabilize the shuttle's systems. "Our shields won't hold much longer." "Then we'll have to fight back," Vargas said, eyes narrowing. She turned to the weapons officer, Lieutenant Jackson. "Target the alien ship's propulsion engines. We need to cripple them before they hit us again." Jackson nodded, his hand steady on the controls as he locked onto the alien ship's massive engines. The shuttle's weapon systems, modified with the alien tech from the wreck, flared to life. A blinding beam of energy shot from the shuttle's forward cannon, a concentrated pulse that slammed into the Carrack ship's propulsion systems. The impact was enormous, sending a wave of shock through the shuttle as the alien ship's engines exploded in a violent burst of light. The Carrack ship shuddered violently, its forward momentum faltering. For a moment, Vargas allowed herself a breath, a flicker of hope rising in her chest. The alien ship had been wounded, its engines damaged, but the fight was far from over. Before she could issue another command, the Carrack ship retaliated, unleashing a barrage of smaller, faster projectiles. The shuttle swerved, barely evading the incoming fire, but the proximity of the blasts sent the crew tumbling across the cabin as the shuttle lurched violently. "We can't keep dodging forever," Klein yelled, his voice tinged with panic. "We need a plan." Vargas clenched her fists, her mind flashing back to the wrecked ship and the strange, pulsating artifact they had recovered. The Carrack ship had been drawn to the artifact's signal, which meant it was important, perhaps even vital to the entire conflict. And now it was in their hands. The alien ship hadn't just attacked them for no reason. It had sensed the artifact's power, if they could somehow use that to their advantage. "Jackson, prep the secondary weapon systems, Vargas barked. I think I have an idea. Jackson's eyes lit up with understanding. You're thinking of using the artifact's energy against them. Vargas nodded sharply. We can tap into its residual power. It's the only thing that can give us a fighting chance. But we'll need to get close enough to the Carrick ship to channel its energy. The crew exchanged uneasy looks. The alien artifact was untested, unpredictable, but it was their best shot. They didn't have the luxury of time or certainty. The Carrick ship was closing in fast, and if they didn't act now, they'd be reduced to dust in the vacuum of space. Vargas turned to the pilot controls, gritting her teeth. All hands, brace for a high-speed approach. We're going to fly straight into their fire and pray that the artifact gives us what we need. The shuttle surged forward, barreling toward the alien ship. The Carrick ship fired again. But this time, Vargas anticipated the shot, weaving the shuttle expertly through the incoming fire. The shuttle's forward cannon flared to life once more, striking the Carrick ship's shields. But it was no use. They were still too far out of range. Almost there, Vargas muttered, her knuckles white, as she gripped the controls. Hold tight. They flew toward the alien ship, the monstrous silhouette growing larger and larger in the viewport. The Carrick ship responded with an overwhelming barrage, energy beams, and projectiles flooding the space between them. And then, with mere seconds to spare, Vargas gave the order. Activate the artifact. A pulse of raw, unfiltered energy blasted from the shuttle's core, connecting with the artifact's strange, humming power. The energy flowed through the ship's systems, charging every circuit with an unfamiliar force. A wave of brilliance erupted from the shuttle, slamming into the Carrick ship's defenses with devastating force. The Carrick ship's shields flared and flickered, their energy buckling under the intensity of the blast. The alien ship's once impenetrable armor began to warp and crack, the pulse of human and alien technology combined ripping through their defenses. For the first time since the battle began, the Carrick ship was in serious trouble. We've got them, Vargas said, breathless, as she steered the shuttle into a sharp turn, leaving the Carrick ship crippled behind them. But as the shuttle veered away, a deep mechanical growl rumbled from the Carrick ship. It wasn't over, not yet. They had won this battle, but the war was far from finished. The shuttle veered away from the crippled Carrick ship, its thrusters burning hot, pushing them faster into the depths of space. The crew was silent, shaken by the intensity of the battle, but there was no time to celebrate. Vargas's heart pounded in her chest, her mind still racing through the chaos of their narrow escape. They had managed to damage the Carrick ship, but the fight was far from over. The alien vessel was massive, its technology far superior to anything Earth had, and even though they had gained a temporary advantage, the Carrack were relentless. They were not going to let this humiliation slide. Status report. Vargas barked, snapping out of her daze as she glanced over her shoulder toward Klein. We've made it into orbit, Klein said, his voice tight. The Carrick ship is still alive, but its engines are down. The shields are damaged, but not completely offline. It's repairing itself, quickly. Drayton, hunched over his console, looked up, his face pale. I can see it on the radar. It's pursuing us. It's not going to give up that easily. They've already reoriented their weapons. Can we outrun them? Vargas asked, her eyes darting between the instruments and the crew's faces, searching for hope in the bleak situation. No, Klein replied bluntly. Their ship's propulsion is damaged, but it's still far faster than anything we can throw at it, and it's gaining on us. Vargas clenched her jaw, her mind calculating their limited options. The Carrick ship had adapted faster than they anticipated, and they could feel it closing in. Even though the Carrick vessel had taken significant damage, it was clearly a warship built for durability. The artifact had given them a brief edge, but the alien ship was recovering. They had no chance of outrunning it, and the indomitable asterisk was still in the system, too far to come to their aid in time. "We need to strike while it's vulnerable," Vargas said, her voice grim with determination. "Klein, Drayton, get the shuttle's weapons back online. We need to keep the pressure on them. And we need to do it fast. Jackson, prepare for another shot with the artifact. This time, we're going all in." The crew moved quickly, no words wasted. Jackson worked to configure the shuttle's weapons array, routing the ship's systems through the artifact, readying it for a final, decisive strike. The energy from the artifact thrummed faintly, as though it too understood what was at stake. They didn't have much time. The Karak were closing in. Minutes passed, each one heavier than the last. The Karak ship loomed larger on their sensors, a monstrous presence that sent a ripple of fear through the shuttle's crew. Vargas felt it too, a cold, gnawing anxiety. She had seen war before, human wars, that is, but this was unlike anything humanity had faced. The Karak were a species born of war, and they were not going to stop until they had wiped Earth from existence. The Karak ship fired again, an energy beam so powerful that it lit up the darkness of space like a star. It missed, but the shockwave of the blast sent the shuttle tumbling through space. The crew braced against the violence of the motion, but Vargas held her focus. "All right, we're close enough," Vargas said, her voice cutting through the tension. "Jackson, do it." Jackson hit the final command, and the artifact flared to life. A blinding pulse of energy surged through the shuttle, coursing through its systems and into the forward cannon. The weapon hummed with power, and for a brief, breathtaking moment, the crew could feel the sheer intensity of the force they were about to unleash. Vargas set her jaw and aimed at the Karak ship's remaining propulsion units. They had no choice but to cripple the ship completely. If they didn't, the Karak would finish them off within minutes. "Fire," she commanded. The shuttle's cannon unleashed a violent beam of raw energy, the concentrated force cutting through space toward the Karak ship with deadly accuracy. It collided with the alien ship's remaining propulsion systems, the blast powerful enough to send a massive shockwave through space, rattling the shuttle. The Karak ship groaned in protest, but for the first time, it began to buckle under the weight of the damage. The shields crackled and sputtered, the ship's exterior smoking from the concentrated hit. The crew held their breath as the alien ship faltered, its engines sparking and flashing in a display of violent energy. For a moment, it seemed the Karak ship might finally collapse. But then, just as quickly, the ship's massive weaponry powered up again, and the air inside the shuttle grew heavy with the looming threat. "They're still firing," Klein shouted. "We need to get out of here." Vargas didn't hesitate. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers. We're not done yet." With one final burst of speed, Vargas whipped the shuttle into a sharp turn, narrowly avoiding a volley of plasma bolts from the Karak ship's guns. The shuttle lurched, rocking as the hull began to groan under the strain, but Vargas's hands were steady as she piloted them through the chaos. The Karak ship, despite the damage, was still coming. Its weapons were firing sporadically now, but each blast seemed to hit closer, the heat from the energy beams searing the edges of their shields. Vargas knew they couldn't keep this up forever. "How long before we're out of range?" she demanded, her voice hard. 10 minutes at best," Drayton replied, his eyes glued to the ship's sensors. "We won't make it that long," Vargas said under her breath. "We need to finish this now." A final desperate thought struck her. If they couldn't outrun the Karak, maybe they could give the Karak a taste of their own medicine. It was time to take the fight to them, before it was too late. The Karak ship loomed closer, its massive hull casting a shadow over the shuttle. The distance between them was closing fast, and Captain Vargas could feel the sweat beading on her forehead. The shuttle's shields were flickering, barely holding against the onslaught of plasma fire that continued to rain down on them. Every shot that missed left a burning scar across the shuttle's hull, and every near miss rattled them to the core. "We can't keep dodging forever," Klein shouted from his station, his voice rising in frustration. "They're too powerful. We need a miracle. Miracle or not, we're making our own luck, Vargas muttered, eyes locked on the Carrick ship, her hands gripping the controls so tightly her knuckles were white. The artifact's energy was running low, the powerful pulse they had fired moments ago taking its toll on the shuttle systems. But Vargas had one last card to play. The Carrick ship had been relentless, their weapons stronger than anything Earth had, but now they were weak, vulnerable. It was a gamble, one she wasn't sure would pay off. But there was no other option. If they didn't make this work, they wouldn't make it out alive. "Jackson," she said, voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Prepare the artifact for a full overload." Jackson turned in his seat, his face pale but resolute. "Are you sure, Captain? If we overload it, we might take out the shuttle with us." Vargas nodded grimly. "It's our only chance. We overload the artifact's core, then channel the energy directly into the Carrick ship's central systems. If we can disrupt their power grid, we might just bring it down." The crew exchanged nervous glances. They had no backup plan, no escape if this failed, but Vargas knew it had to be done. The alien ship was too close now. They couldn't outrun it, and their weapons weren't strong enough to finish it off at a distance. They had one shot at this. "Do it, Jackson," Vargas ordered. With a deep breath, Jackson began rerouting the shuttle's energy systems, pulling every last reserve of power from the shuttle's engines and weapons. The artifact began to hum, its power slowly building as Jackson worked the controls. The air inside the shuttle grew thick with static, the tension palpable. The Carrick ship was still closing in, its weapons charging for another round of fire. Vargas could see the flickers of energy lighting up across the Carrick ship's hull, the glowing orbs of plasma charging in their massive turrets. They were preparing to fire again, and this time, there would be no avoiding it. "Captain," Klein said urgently, "we've got maybe 2 minutes before they fire again. You've got to make your move now." Vargas's eyes flicked to the screen, tracking the Carrick ship's progress. The alien vessel was in range, its guns primed. This was it. If they didn't act now, they were dead. "Jackson," Vargas shouted. "How close are we?" 50 seconds, Jackson replied, his voice tense as he wrestled with the shuttle's overloaded systems. "The artifact is nearly at full capacity. Just a little more time." Vargas's mind raced. She had one last chance. They couldn't afford to wait any longer. "All right," she said, turning to Klein. "Get ready to fire the last of our weapons the moment the overload is active. We hit them with everything we've got." Klein nodded and began adjusting the weapon systems, preparing for the final strike. The Carrick ship fired first, the blast tearing through the vacuum of space toward them. Vargas's heart skipped a beat as she saw the pulse of plasma racing toward the shuttle. It was too close. They weren't going to dodge this one. "Brace for impact," Vargas shouted. The shuttle lurched violently as the plasma bolt slammed into its shields. The force of the blast rattled the shuttle to its core, and the energy field around them flared, flickering. The shields were holding, but just barely. "We've got less than 30 seconds, Drayton said, his voice trained. "I don't know how much longer the shields will hold." Vargas didn't answer. Instead, she tightened her grip on the controls, the desperation now palpable in her bones. They couldn't afford another hit like that. The Carrick ship was preparing for another strike. "Now, Jackson," Vargas snapped. "Release the overload." With a final keystroke, Jackson activated the overload sequence. The artifact's energy exploded through the shuttle systems, lighting up the cabin with a brilliant flash of white-hot light. The ship's entire frame trembled as the raw power of the artifact surged into the shuttle's weapon systems. The energy blast shot forward, a concentrated beam of alien force, directed straight at the Carrick ship. It hit with a cataclysmic force. The Carrick ship's shields collapsed under the intense blast, the energy ripping through its outer layers and sending a shockwave of destruction across its hull. The Carrick vessel groaned and buckled, the entire ship shuddering violently as its central systems began to short-circuit. Vargas watched in grim satisfaction as the alien ship faltered, its weapons going dark and its engines stalling. The once formidable Carrick ship, now crippled and vulnerable, slowly began to drift. The shuttle, still rattling from the residual force of the blast, veered away, its course now set for escape. But just as Vargas allowed herself to breathe, a low, menacing growl resonated through the shuttle's systems. The Carrick ship, though wounded, wasn't done yet. "It's not over yet," Vargas whispered. "They're still alive. And they're angry asterisk." The shuttle rocked violently as it veered away from the now crippled Carrick ship. Despite the intense damage, the alien vessel was far from finished. It was drifting, but its engines sputtered, struggling to restart. Vargas knew that if the Carrick ship's central core stabilized, they'd be back in the fight. Worse, they wouldn't be ready. The shuttle systems were barely holding together after the artifact overload, and their energy reserves were running dangerously low. Klein gripped his seat, eyes darting to the blinking redouts. "Captain, they're still firing. They're not down for good." Vargas's jaw clenched. The Carrick ship was slowing, but not fast enough. Its weapons were charging again, and she knew that one more direct hit could tear the shuttle apart. "Drayton, how much longer do we have on these shields?" Vargas asked, her voice steady, but tinged with urgency. "Shields are barely holding," Drayton replied, his fingers flying over his console. "We've got maybe 2 minutes before they fail completely. After that, we're exposed." The air in the shuttle seemed to grow thicker, the weight of their situation pressing down on each of them. Outside, the Carrick ship loomed, still twitching with life, like a wounded beast desperate for a final strike. It wasn't going to let them go. "Get us some distance, Klein," Vargas ordered, already calculating their next move. "I need at least a few kilometers of space to work with." Klein nodded and yanked the control yoke back, sending the shuttle into a sharp arc. They flew farther into the void of space, the Carrick ship slowly falling behind. The comms crackled with a sudden transmission, one that made Vargas's stomach drop. Asterisk, "You cannot escape, asterisk," the alien voice rasped, cold and malevolent. Asterisk, "This war is yours to lose. Your world will be consumed. Asterisk. Vargas didn't flinch. She had heard the Carrick's threats before, but this time, they felt different. There was a finality to the message, a certainty that sent a chill down her spine. But she wasn't done yet. "We're not done yet," she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. She turned back to her crew. "Klein, I need a straight shot at their power core. This is our last chance. We do this, and we take them out for good. If we don't, we're dead." Klein's eyes widened as the gravity of her words hit him. A straight shot. "But the Carrick ship's shields are almost down," Vargas interrupted, scanning the Carrick ship's energy readouts. "We've cracked them once. If we overload their power core, their whole ship will collapse. But I need to be sure we hit it. The moment their shields drop, we need to fire." Jackson, still hunched over his console, nodded sharply. "I'll adjust the energy conduit. We'll be ready to overload the artifact once more. But after that, Captain, we're out of juice. We'll have no power left." Vargas met his eyes. "Understood. We do this or we don't walk away. Everyone ready?" The crew exchanged tense looks, the weight of the moment settling on them all. No one said anything. There was nothing to say. They were committed. The shuttle banked hard, turning toward the still drifting Carrick ship, which was trying to realign itself for another attack. Its weapons powered up again, glowing with malevolent intent, but Vargas could see the strain in the alien ship's movements. It was slowing down. They had taken a toll on it, more than they realized. "We've got a window," Vargas said. "Klein, bring us in close. I need that core exposed." Klein nodded, a grim determination setting in his features. "On it, Captain." The shuttle closed the distance between them, and the Carrack ship, dodging another volley of plasma fire. The alien ship fired again, but its aim was off, their weapons misfiring as the ship's systems continued to fail. Vargas could see the glow of the Carrack's weapons flickering, their power waning. This was their moment. Now Jackson. Overloaded. Jackson slammed his fist onto the console, sending the artifact's energy surging through the shuttle's weapon systems. The whole ship hummed with a rising intensity as the artifact pulsed, channeling all its remaining power. The shuttle's forward cannon glowed bright with the raw energy of the artifact, supercharged and deadly. Firing in 3, 2, 1. Vargas's fingers slammed the firing button. The shuttle's cannon unleashed a blinding beam of energy, a concentrated bolt that shot through the dark expanse of space toward the Carrack ship's exposed core. The energy strike was direct, slamming into the alien ship's power center with a force so overwhelming, the entire ship trembled. The Carrack ship's shields crumpled, and the core exploded with a thunderous detonation, a burst of light and force that illuminated the surrounding void. The shockwave of the explosion rippled outward, shaking the shuttle as it veered away, the force of the blast sending them tumbling through space. For a moment, everything was silent. Then, a slow, deep rumble reverberated through the shuttle's hull. The Carrack ship, once a towering behemoth, was no more. Its systems disintegrated in the aftermath of the explosion, the ship breaking apart in a cascade of fiery debris. The crew sat in stunned silence, watching as the wreckage of the Carrack ship drifted into nothingness. It was over. Vargas leaned back in her seat, exhaling a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. They had won. Against all odds, they had beaten the Carrack. But she knew that victory came at a cost. They'd destroyed the alien warship, but there was no telling how many more would come. The war was far from over, and humanity had just made its first mark on the battlefield. "Prepare for recovery," Vargas said quietly. "We've got a long road ahead of us." As the shuttle drifted toward the edge of the system, the crew understood. They weren't just survivors. They were humanity's first line of defense. And the war for their world had only just begun.